what is a race condition and in what kind of scenario a race condition can happen. Basically, it can happen whenever we have multiple entities, and those can mean different things. I will come back to it in a second. And those multiple entities can simultaneously access and modify. Usually just reading is fine, but modifying, changing the state, updating the value is the reason for the race condition that happens. So updating the state of some resource from multiple entities simultaneously. And this can happen in different scenarios on many different levels. So for example, it can be between threads. Threads share global variables within the process in which they're running. So if two of them or more than two of them try to access this same variable, and between read and write, switch between threads happens. And the switch, of course, is something for threads that we have no control over. Switch between threads happens whenever CPU schedules this switch. So the context switch between threads can happens in unexpected ways, or we should expect that we have no control over when exactly this switch will happen. So if I read something in one thread and then I want to update it in the same thread, but in between the read and update, a switch to another thread happen, maybe this thread will update it first and then CPU will switch back to my thread, but I still hold the old value. So whatever this other thread has done in between will be lost. That's the basic idea. The output of, or the result of those operations is unpredictable. So each time you run your program, if it is like for threads, you can have you end up with a different value of this global variable. But of course, as I said, it's something that is also can scale up to other sort of scenarios. It's not only something that happens between threads. Like with many things in concurrent and parallel programming, it scales up to distributed programming as well. All those ideas. So, for example, it can happen also between programs. And the resource could be logical, like a variable within the program, but could also be physical. It could be access to, let's say, CPU, GPU, some network. It could be access to a socket, could be access to the file, to row within the table, within the database, and so on and so forth. So resource is a very general term, and the same applies to those entities. So it could be threads, could be processes, could be containers running on the same machine, but it scales up until, let's say, cloud. It could be, like, for example, services within a GCP that in that kind of scenario, they will probably not run on the same machine. They may not even run within the same data center. So definitely they will not share memory between each other, but maybe the output or some part of the state, like that they are modifying somewhere, like the result of what they are doing, is shared. Maybe it is like a row within a table. For most of modern databases, it will be protected by the database system on its own. It will try to protect against race conditions, but maybe you will also there are also some scenarios in which it can happen, but it can also happen, for example, if the output is the same file. So maybe both of them will want to write to the same file. Again, file system will also have some protections against this, but in theory, it can happen as well. So those this condition, even though it starts or this concept, even though it's maybe starts with threads, it can also apply up until the distributed system and so on. Like many other things, as I said, in concurrent and parallel program. So let's see an example with Python. And in Python, it's interesting since we have this idea or this concept of GIL. And so there is this global interpreter lock, and it prevents within the same Python interpreter from parallel execution of Python bytecode. So at exactly same time, within the same Python interpreter, you cannot have the parallel execution of Python bytecode. But still, you can have threads And if the switch between different threads manages to or happens between the time we read some value and this shared resource in one thread and modified it, and before we actually managed to modify it within this thread, we switched to another thread which maybe also did something on the same resource, then when we switch back, the value that we have in this original thread will be still the old value, so it will not reread it. Of course, it all depends on how we write our code. There are ways in which we can prevent it, and actually Jill most of the time can help us here, and prevents us from this unwanted situation and race conditions, but not always. So today I am going to demonstrate exactly how it can happen and what can we do with it. So let's import some external libraries or packages, and what we need, like external, not that are not available out of the box but still part of standard Python. We want time, and we want maybe like this, from threading thread. And so we want to create some thread objects and time actually to trigger the switch between or to make the window for the switch between threads wider. And we will see in a second why. So let's create a function that will be the target for our threads. We will call it worker, and it can accept two arguments, thread ID or maybe multiplier, or a value with which we will increment it. I don't know how could it be called, incrementer. Let's call it inc, and also n, how many times you want to execute in a loop, and increase some external counter. Let's create also the counter here globally, and let's start with 1. To access it here, we need to specify that it's global counter, and now n times for underscore in range n. We'll try to modify it, and we will first read the value of the counter, so local counter will store it. Then we want to increment it by this value, and then we will update the global counter here like this. That's it. Now let's create main, and let's set n here to 10 first. Then let's create threads using this list comprehension. Target will be this function worker, and it needs 2 arguments, the incrementer and n. So first one will be I, and n will be this n, and I will come from our list comprehension, so for I in range 10, let's say. We will have 10 threads in total, or I plus 1. Now, actually, for the purpose of this demonstration, we could also leave it as I. Okay, so now let's start all the threads. And so for each of them, we'll call start, because here only the object is created, but it doesn't start executing automatically. And then again, the same thing, but we want to join. And so we want to wait for them to finish the execution. And of course, they have finite amount of work to do, so joining makes sense. And otherwise, like the main thread would exit before they manage to do everything. We want to print the final value is the following: counter And now we can call the main. If name equals main, then we call main. And right now, we actually probably will not see any race condition so far. So let's see. And the final value is 551. Let's try one more time. Each time is exactly the same. Let's maybe increase the n to 1000 and give it more time. Okay, 55,000. It's still always the same. But if now we use this time and sleep for as little as 0 second, see what happens. And after I read the value, I go to sleep for 0 second. Suddenly, it's less than it was before. Much less. It was 55,000, now it's 7,000. Now 6,000, now it's 3,000. And that's the idea behind the race condition. Each time you run it, you can end up with a different value. 3,004, 5,006, 9,028. Why? Because now here, we actually, even though we sleep for 0 seconds, this was enough to trigger the switch between the threads. So our one of our threads reads the value of the counter. It stores it locally, but then the switch happens here, and the other one does the same. And it does its update, but then when we switch back and execute those things, we still have the old value. So each time, actually, because of this, we end up with the final value that is much less than what we have originally. Originally we have like 55,000. And to prevent it, we can also use lock. So in this particular case, since it's very simple, if I just remove time sleep, we always end up with this, but we shouldn't rely on this guarantee. The proper way is to create a lock or a mutex that will guard the counter and do all the operations here with the lock. So from threading, import thread and lock. And I can call it maybe like this. Mutex equals lock. And now I can use a context manager, put it here with mutex, put all of this inside, and now it's guaranteed that we always end up with the correct result. So as long as we are within this lock, the switch between threads will not happen, and this thing will prevent from the switch to happening there. And so we have 55,000, and even now if I put time sleep like this, it's still 55,000. Can even increase it to like 0.01. I know it takes much longer, but still at the end we will have 55,000. Maybe it's too long. Let's stop. Let's make it like this. We should finish faster. Yeah, 55,000, that one. So that's the basic idea behind both race conditions and mutexes.